The following review may contain spoilers. The film has great production value throughout, great cinematography, costumes, sets, and special effects. All the technical aspects of this film are really well done. And there are a few great individual moments in the film. One scene that stands out is Gong Li's death. I thought that was really well directed. Another good idea was a couple of instances of a rotating camera that's used to kind of accentuate the action scenes. One is when Jason Scott Lee is running up the wall of the castle, and the other is used on Yifei Liu during the final battle scene. The camera rotates during one of her fighting movements, and the results are exhilarating. These moments were well done, and I wish this film had a lot more of them. The actors' accents are all over the place, which tends to happen when these Asian-themed movies are produced by Hollywood. You have Chinese actors, Asian American actors, and I think I even heard one of the generals speak in a British accent. And the weirdest of them all, New Yorker Tai Ma, who says the word daughter without the R, which is really bizarre. I wish the director had honed in all the accents and there was a little bit more consistency. Another problem with the film is that the dialogue was wooden. I know that this is a period piece set in Imperial China where everyone is speaking English, so of course we're not going to have modern natural sounding dialogue. That being said, the dialogue was still distractingly wooden. You kind of expected it to be wooden, but not to this level of distraction. Mulan's friends in the army, the supporting characters, were poorly written. In the animated film, there were three guys: the skinny guy, the fat guy, and the short guy who acts tough. The characteristics for all three were very clear, and all three of them were extremely funny. Here I think we have the same three guys, but their characteristics are not that clear, and they're not that interesting or funny. I mean, they didn't have to be funny. If you wanted to go the more serious fantasy action adventure route and cut down on the comedy, that's fine, but at least flesh out these characters a little bit. They're just very bland and definitely needed a punch-up. There's a lot of poor directing choices in this film. Several moments of the film were just cheesy, especially when they used the melody from the Christina Aguilera song Reflection. Another poor directing choice is that they make no effort to make Mulan look or act like a boy. In the original animated version, she does try to deepen her voice a little, and that's enough for the audience. We basically know it's an unrealistic situation, but we need a little something to help us buy into it. In this live-action version, she basically does nothing. She barely deepens her voice and doesn't change her look other than putting her hair up in a bun. She clearly just looks like a girl in battle armor. Shakespeare in Love was another film that also had the premise of a girl dressing up as a boy and fooling everyone. But in that film, Gwyneth Paltrow puts on a fake mustache. And again, the audience just needs a little something to buy into the situation. But in this version of Mulan, they basically don't do anything. Another big problem in this film is that it never clearly establishes the fantasy rules. We really needed a little bit of exposition. We all know exposition is boring, but sometimes it's a necessary evil. The only thing they mention is something about having a chi or something like that. But Mulan has several powers that are just not clearly explained. Walking up walls, amazing agility, like when she jumps up in the air and kicks a spear into a bad guy. There's also that scene where Mulan creates an avalanche by touching the ground and making it tremble or something. And the bad guys also have their own set of powers. Jason Scott Lee can also run up walls. And of course Gong Li can turn into a giant bird or many birds. But the movie never establishes the fantasy rules of who can do what and why. Maybe they should have had some training like the Force in Star Wars. The movie never attempts to establish or explain any of these characters' abilities. But the single worst part about this movie is the action. When I saw the trailers, it looked like an interesting concept that they're going to take one of these Disney animated classics, but actually make it more of like a fantasy action movie, and I thought that was a cool idea, especially after Lion King, which we know was just a shot-by-shot remake. So making Mulan very different was a welcome concept, but the action that we saw in the trailer that made the trailer intriguing, it's just flat out terrible in the actual movie. It looks like the director Nikki Caro decided to go to the Michael Bay School of Filmmaking and just have an absolute delirious editing pace. Sometimes a shot that lasts under a second is necessary, but when you have like 10 in a row strung together, the shots just basically fail to register in your brain. The only plausible reason that you would cut this fast is for pacing's sake, but if the shots don't register in your brain, then it's just pointless. We can't take in all these beautiful shots, all these exhilarating moments, because it's all just cut way too fast. My final rating for Mulan is 2 stars. As of the making of this video, the Rotten Tomatoes percentage for Mulan is 76%, which is just a tad too high. So Disney had what seemed to be an interesting concept, remaking a kids film and making it more of a mature fantasy action adventure film, but really poorly directed action scenes, among other things, just sink this movie.